15 GMs, scouts, and executives who will remain nameless filled out a survey and picked the LA Clippers to win the NBA championship. Clippers, championship, same sentence, championship favorites. We know what happened the last time they were picked as that. Is it going to be too much for the Clippers to handle? Is it going to be inevitable disappointment? Or are they just thinking the same thing as your boy over here on today's Locked On Clippers?
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day. My name is Darian Vaziri, a Clipper fan for 18 years. This will be my 18th season as a fan. I am also the host of my very own podcast and YouTube channel called Dime Dropper. You can find it on YouTube or any podcast platform. I go live after Clipper and Laker games and make a lot of content on NBA history, so go check that out if interested. But today we're going to be talking about several things. First, we're going to talk about the survey that I had just mentioned. Where did the Clippers fall? I mean, I already said they were picked as favorites to win the championship, so we're going to talk about what that means, the expectations, and the favorites when it's mentioned in the same sentence as the Clippers tends to make a lot of Clipper fans, including myself, a little uneasy, so we're going to talk about that. And then I'm going to continue going through the roster and talking about expectations for certain players. And in today's episode, I want to talk about Terance Mann, Kennard, and Amir Coffey, three fan favorites, which we'll talk about how big their roles could be and will be this season. And then I'm also going to talk about John Wall. An interview was recently released, and there was some powerful things in there. So I'm going to talk about what we heard from John Wall and just how much I'm rooting for the guy, and we should be rooting for the guy as Clipper fans. And you should be rooting for him as well, even if you're not a Clipper fan. But anyway, let's start out with the survey. You know, I'm tempted to say the GM survey because the NBA always conducts that, but I think this was a separate one. It came from ESPN in an article by Tim Bontemps. And 15, as I said, scouts, coaches, and executives who were anonymous voted for several things like the best player in the NBA, in which Giannis Antetokounmpo won with 11 votes out of 15. MVP this season, Giannis also won with 5 votes, but that was a closer race. Luka was in there, as you'd expect. They voted on things like which team will Kevin Durant and Donovan Mitchell be on the day after the trade deadline. Donovan Mitchell overwhelmingly picked to go to the New York Knicks. Kevin Durant picked to stay with the Brooklyn Nets, 13 to 1 vote to Phoenix, 1 vote to Boston. But the important one that involves the Clippers, actually one that mentioned the Clippers, which team had the best offseason. There were a lot of teams that got votes, 8 teams that got votes. The Clippers got 1 vote, but the Boston Celtics actually won with 6 votes. However, Danilo Gallinari, former Clipper Danilo Gallinari, getting injured playing for the Italian national team. My prayers and well wishes to him as a former Clipper, a big part of that 2019 team. Hope he gets well soon. But obviously, the Clippers getting a vote there because of the addition of John Wall. Which team had the worst offseason? The Dallas Mavericks won that one. The Clippers, thankfully, were not in that one. The Lakers got a vote there, but the Mavericks won that one with 6 votes. And then who wins the West? 2 votes to the Golden State Warriors. I'm sorry. 3 votes to the Golden State Warriors, 1 to the Denver Nuggets, 3 to the Phoenix Suns, and 8, a majority 8, to the LA Clippers. Wow. I think they're really sleeping on Golden State there. I mean, obviously it makes me happy as a Clipper fan, but it's also like, it reminds me of the 2019-20 season. I feel like that's the only other season in the history of the Clippers where they were expected to win the championship going into it by many people. And 8 votes to win the West out of 15. Obviously, these are just guys predicting like the rest of us with, more credentialed. But at the end of the day, they're spectators of the game. Well, I did say coaches. But they're making predictions the same way we're making predictions. And 8 of them to choose the Clippers to win the West with all the injury concerns that we've talked about, with the Golden State Warriors having been there, done that, and just won, you're putting a lot of stock, in my opinion, in Kawhi Leonard's performance and him being healthy. Because at the end of the day, that's what we've talked about so many times, or I've talked about. Kawhi Leonard. We're only going to go as far as he takes us, really. And Kawhi Leonard being healthy and being himself is going to be the biggest part of everything. I think the Clippers have a great supporting cast. I think they have a great coach. I think Paul George should be great if he can stay healthy. As a second guy, I mean, PG, we've seen him as a first guy, what he can do. As a second guy for a healthy playoff run when he's focused and he's in a good mental state and in rhythm, like not like he was in the bubble, but like he was in 2021 alongside Kawhi. We still haven't seen them lose with Ty Lue yet healthy. But it's all about Kawhi playing at that level. He had to play at an insane level to beat the Dallas Mavericks. So I just think that's an optimistic pick. And of course, Clippers going to their first ever championship, 8 votes. I mean, if I had, and I'm not going to lie, in Clipper Nation, please don't get on me for this. This is not being pessimistic. I'm picking us to go all the way, or I'm picking the Clippers to go all the way. But if I had one pick and I'm trying to be unbiased, I would never pick the Clippers to go to the championship just because the external forces that seem to go against them every time they get close to advancing. It used to be the conference finals. But you know what? I have said throughout the last year that after the Clippers broke that second round curse or that barrier, that the floodgates are going to open. And that means that there's no more curse, no more voodoo, bad juju, whatever you want to call it. The Clippers are going to go to the finals. So you know what? I should just be happy. But at the same time, if the Clippers don't make it to the finals, people are going to use this article and say, look at this. Clippers couldn't perform. If you're curious about the Eastern Conference champions, by the way, 1 vote for the Miami Heat, and it's split down the middle, 7-7 between the Bucks and the Celtics, which is not crazy. And then to win the championship, ladies and gentlemen, 2 for the Warriors, 4 for the Celtics, 4 for the Bucks, and your very own LA Clippers, if you're a Clipper fan, with 5 votes, winning the whole shebang. Wow. I always say as a fan, the seasons can be much more enjoyable when you don't have those expectations, when you have nothing to lose. I feel like that's the Clipper way. And the way we have enjoyed as Clipper fans in recent times, the stress of Lob City was just so much for me to handle at times. Hanging on every result because you want to get a good seed, and I believe that this season's going to be like that. We need to be hanging on every result. We need to be hoping for a good seed. I think, again, I've repeated this several times, but if the Clippers don't get a top 3 seed, they're not going to win the championship. I believe that very firmly. Only 2 teams have won the NBA championship that finished below the 3 seed. That's the 69 Celtics and the 95 Rockets. I think it's more than anything, it's a testament to how healthy you've been during the season. If you're not healthy, your best players are not healthy, you're not going to get a top 3 seed most likely. That would be the Clippers getting a top 3 seed would be indicative of good health or better health, hopefully with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George playing 60-plus games, because if they don't, it's going to be very hard to get a good seed, which will make it very hard for those GMs to be right. As far are the GM scouts, the people that voted. As far as expectations go, look, I said it's championship or bust, so that means my expectations are going to be high. And no, I won't overreact for regular season losses. But man, if things start to get shaky, if the Clippers start having losing streaks or even lose 2 games in a row, which losing 2 games in a row is not a big deal for a lot of teams, but for championship teams it is, who are determined to get 60-win level seasons. And the Clippers should have that mentality. This whole, let's just make sure we're healthy in the playoffs attitude, there's levels to it in my opinion. That's obviously the most important thing, but it shouldn't come at the expense of rhythm and trying to build streaks and trying to win 60 games and building that chemistry, because when you build that confidence throughout the team, then in the playoffs, it becomes more familiar. I know the recent Phoenix Suns aren't a great example of that, but most NBA champions are top seeds. It's just the case. And the Clippers need to be that, and to do that, I think Kawhi Leonard needs to be healthy. Paul George needs to be healthy. Paul George, I'm more confident in that respect because we've just seen him last season. But Kawhi Leonard, it really is all on him. I appreciate those that give the Clippers the nod to be the NBA champions. It still feels insane for me as a Clipper fan for 18 years, to the Sterling era and the dog days. Not as many dog days as a lot of fans, I will say. not sports arena days, but just to hear Clippers and championship favorites in the same sentence, it's unbelievable. And there's nowhere to hide this season for being real Clipper fans. There's nowhere to hide. If the Clippers don't win the championship, injuries or whatever, they're going to be scrutinized, and they should be, because this will be the fourth year of the experiment, not the experiment, of the Kawhi and Paul George era, and something needs to happen. Need to at least get to the finals. They really need to win the championship, because Kawhi and Paul George, they're not getting younger at the end of the day. And I think the championship window lasts past this season, but there's no reason to think past this upcoming season, because it's the best chance the Clippers have ever had to win the championship. And part of the reason that is the role players. Terance Mann, Amir Coffey, and Luke Kennard are some of those, and we're going to be talking about them coming up next. The LA Clippers are plus 375 to win the 2023 Western Conference. That's the second highest odds after the Golden State Warriors. You think they're good odds? I think they're pretty good. I think they're being a little bit harsh, but you know me. Go place your bets right now on betonline.net. Betonline.net is your number one source for all your pro and college football or basketball betting needs and sports info this season. Find all of the latest league developments, game matchups, news and podcasts, including this year's opening night games. That's Clippers against the Lakers. Make sure to go place your bets on that as well. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the betting lines and the action. Bet online, where the game starts. All right, back to talk about the Clipper roster as we continue. And by the way, I know you probably are sick of hearing me talk about these players and by myself as well, but don't worry, we are going to be joined with some company, or by some company, in due time. But I do want to get through the roster just because I want to give my say on each of these players and each of the main contributors and key players for the Clippers this upcoming season. And one of those is fan favorite Terance Mann. Now, Terance Mann is heading into his fourth season, obviously so famous amongst Clipper fans because of the curse breaker Game 6 to win the series and send the Clippers to the conference finals for the first time ever. I was there that night. It was a night I'll never forget. And last season, he took some strides. So let me just read off the stats. His statistical improvement first for Terance Mann, a guy who is 6'6", he's listed at 6'5", but he's got really long arms, one of the best defenders on the team, very alert, great on the ball, great getting over screens on defense, which is, I always say that perimeter defense in today's NBA is less about staying in front of your man and more about navigating over screens or under screens. Terance Mann is fantastic. He has great timing, right place, right time, is always willing to put his body on the line, and he's always willing to make the extra effort play. He takes pride in defense, and that's why he's one of my favorite players, not just on the team, but in the league. Obviously, if you're one of my favorite players on the Clippers, you are going to be one of my favorite players in the league. But Terance Mann is honestly just one of my favorite players of all time because of his insane performance in Game 6 against the Nuggets. Against the Jazz. And let me not forget also his Game 7 against the Mavs. He was fantastic in that game as well, that I was also at. And by the way, if you want to check out those games and what it was like to be in the crowd, check out my YouTube channel where we have the vlogs of those games. But Terance Mann, let's look at his statistical increase from the 2021 season to 2022, because his rookie season he really didn't play. So last season, the 2021-22 season, he played in 81 games. Amazing. Need that availability. He only started in 33. That was obviously because of the constant injuries. Nico Batum, Marcus Morris, guys were out. And then Norman Powell, Paul George, etc. But 81 games played. That's huge. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Terance Mann's going to play 82 games this year. But one thing that's great about him is he's young, and so far, knock on wood, he's been durable. 19 minutes a game was his average in the 2021 season. 28.6, so rounds up to 29, about a 10-minute increase last season for obvious reasons, as I said, with the injuries. Expect that number to go down. I say it'll be around the 23, 24-minute mark. He also increased his shot attempts from 5 to 8.5 last season. His percentage slightly went down. It went from 51% to 48%, but I'll take that all day. 48%, 8.5 shots a game attempted. And you know he was starting to take tougher shots too, Terance Mann, last season. 3-point percentage went down. We'd like to see that number go up again, but he went from only shooting 1.4 in 2021 to 2.6 in 2022, 42% in 2021, 36.5% in 2022. So I'm going to predict that number is going to be 38% this year. I think he's going to get better looks just with the attention that Kawhi and Paul are going to bring, and of course Norman Powell. And I think he's just going to keep improving. I know he's putting in work in the gym always. He's a workhorse, and he has made improvements to his game every year. The main thing I want to see from Terance Mann, though, and I doubt he'll be used in these situations too much this season with John Wall being there, but if there are situations where someone's load managing or people are injured, seeing him continue to develop as a ball handler and pick and roll a bit is something I like to see. He averaged 2.6 assists last year. That was his career high. And I think he has a high basketball IQ. He has the occasional highlight pass in there if you can go back and look at some of his nicest dimes. But he has a good eye for the game. I just think that he needs to continue to become a better scorer, which will open things up for him. And that starts with his jump shot for me. He's also very right-hand dominant. He struggles to go left immensely, more so than even Norman Powell, who I mentioned is really good going to his strong hand. But Terance Mann's fantastic going hard drive right. Lowers that shoulder. He's very strong. He's got long arms and he has good bounce. It elevates well. But he struggles to go left. However, he can still be better even if he doesn't even have a left hand, if he can consistently hit that mid-range jumper coming off screens. If guys have to respect his jump shot and have to go over the top of the screen and he can walk into that elbow jump shot, that would really help his game. And if guys go onto the screen, he can pull that 18-footer that makes them go over the screen. That's huge as well. So really his jump shot is what I want to see improve, and him getting reps as the pick-and-roll ball handler when we need to. But I don't think we're going to need to too much. I just hope that he can stay in rhythm, even though his role or minutes might decrease a little bit because the depth is just so vast. And that's part of the reason why I want Marcus Morris Sr. to be traded, is because I want Terance Mann to play a lot more, and he gives us something completely different than Marcus Morris Sr., but I just feel like the Clippers are a little log-jammed there. And then Luke Kennard and Amir Coffey, sadly I've mentioned with them. I'm going to start with Amir Coffey. I'm sorry, Luke Kennard first. But by the way, actually to finish off on Terance Mann, he averaged 11 points, 5 rebounds, and 2.6 assists last season. I'm going to go with, he averaged 11 points, so I'm going to go with 10 points this season. I'll leave the rebounds. I'm going to go to 4 rebounds. It's going to drop by 1. And then I'm going to say his assists are actually going to increase by a little bit. I'm going to go with, that doesn't really make sense though, does it? Nah, I guess they'll stay the same. I'm going to go with around 2.5. So I don't think his stats will actually really get better, but I think that he's just going to be part of a better team and his stats won't change much. So essentially he's going to be playing for a better team with similar stats. So I think it'll be a great season for Terance Mann. I think he's going to be integral in the Clippers' potential title charge. Luke Kennard, a guy that I've mentioned in previous episodes, is going to be sacrificed, I think, this season more than anyone with the addition of John Wall. So when everyone's healthy, John Wall, Norman Powell, and Terance Mann are going to keep Luke Kennard out of the lineup, I think. But Kennard is so great. As I said, led the league in three-point percentage last season with 45%, which was actually the same as he shot at his field goal percentage. And I actually think that number is going to stay the same, especially because I'm optimistic. But I don't think he's going to be in the same rhythm this season. I think his numbers are going to go down. He played in 70 games last year, only started in 13. And I hope he plays 70 games, and I have no doubt in my mind that he'll probably play around that number or be available for around that number. But how much he plays is, I really don't know. He averaged 19.6 minutes his first season with the Clippers in 2020-21. And then, same as Terance Mann, it went up by 8 last season with all the injuries the Clippers had to 27.4. That number is going to drop drastically, in my opinion. I think he's only going to average around 18 minutes a game for the season. I think there's going to be games where he plays 8 minutes, where everyone's healthy and Ty Lue wants some shooting out there. And there's also going to be minutes or games where he plays 28 minutes because somebody's load managing or somebody's injured or multiple players are injured and he's going to be playing. But I think it'll average out to around 19, and I think his number of 12 points a game will go down to around 10. And he doesn't really, he averages 3 rebounds, 2 assists, so I don't think those will change much. But I think his percentage will stay the same. Minutes will be down to around 19, as I said, in my opinion. But I just hope, as I've said before, Luke Kennard gets more playing time than I think he's going to get. I hope he's not just taken out of the rotation when everybody's healthy and doesn't play unless it's very circumstantial, because he is just such an incredible shooter. Can do it in such a multitude of ways. And then Amir Coffey. He's a young guy. We love him as Clipper fans. We love Brian Siemens' puns about him. The Brewmaster, the Folger Soldier, everything. But I think he won't be getting the same amount of exposure and minutes this season as well. He played in 69 games last season for the Clippers and started in 30 of them. Averaged 9 points, got 3 rebounds a game, and 2 assists on 45% shooting and 38 from 3. 23 minutes a game. I don't think Amir Coffey is going to play much this season. I think he's going to only play when if Kawhi is out, I think he plays. If Paul George is out, I think he plays. I honestly think if any one of our major wing players, even the Robert Covingtons, Nico Batums, or if Marcus, actually, I don't know. Marcus Morris Sr., if he's on the team or not, really depends. But in a lot of situations where a wing player is out, like a Kawhi or Paul George or Rocco, I think Amir Coffey will play. But I think his minutes are only going to be around 16 this year. Averaged 23 last year. I think they'll be around 16. I think he's going to average around 7 points as opposed to 9. But I think his percentages will go up. I think he'll shoot 47%. And if he can shoot 38% from 3 again when he plays, that'll be big time. But as much as I hate to say it, and I could be wrong, and Amir Coffey showed much, I've mentioned it many times in these podcasts so far, but his playmaking and pick and roll has really increased. You saw last season he could come off screens and make some good reads, nice little skip passes to the corner, and he's very good going to his strong left hand coming off those screens. So Amir Coffey, I hope to see him develop more. I just think the Clippers are so stacked that it's going to be very hard for him to get into the lineup. But somebody who is a reason why it'll be hard for him to get into the lineup is John Wall, and he spoke very candidly about the last couple years for him, and you might want to take a listen. We're going to talk about it coming right up. All right. So recently the Clippers, the main offseason acquisition was John Wall. Everyone knows him. Multiple time All-Star with the Washington Wizards. And now, after so many injuries, he is back. And back with the LA Clippers. And he opened up in an ESPN interview. I'm not sure if it was done with ESPN, but ESPN did post it. Talking about how hard it's been for him in recent years. And he said that he even contemplated suicide, which is it's crazy to hear because everybody makes these jokes about, well, the Wizards gave John Wall the worst contract in NBA history. He's getting paid $40 million and he's injured. He tore his ACL. Tore his Achilles. And the people make those jokes that he's still getting paid and everything's all good, but you just never know what's going on in someone's life. And that's true for all these NBA players and celebrities as well, especially the athletes. They're just players getting paid to play a game. They're just regular humans like the rest of us as well at the end of the day, even though they're getting paid massive amounts. And I always say it to some of my friends as well, money doesn't always buy happiness. And there's really things that money just can't replace. For example, John Wall was talking about how he lost his grandmother a year after he lost his actual mother and was sitting there while his mom was doing chemo and, seeing his mother take her last breaths. Those are those are life-changing, life-altering moments right there for anybody. Saying he was wearing the same clothes 3 days straight in that hospital, going through the Achilles rehab, and COVID was going on. I mean, you just feel for the guy. For him to admit and be so candid to open up about how low of a point he was at, I think that resonates with a lot of people out there who going through struggles of their own, and hearing it somebody who is a role model of sorts and who you think has everything he wants. Saying that, it just shows, mental health. Kevin Love, DeMar DeRozan, several NBA players have opened up about it. Even Paul George. There's things going on mentally with players. There are people too. And sometimes we forget this because they're playing a game that we all enjoy watching and we enjoy criticizing them on every turn. I'm over here talking about them 5 days a week after they play. And I've said some things about players that I regret on my channel and stuff like that. Sometimes forgetting, they're humans and maybe some things are going on inside. And that's the thing. You never know what a player's going through. So John Wall, I think everyone's going to be behind him this season, not just Clipper fans, but fans around the league to perform and play well and get back to a glimpse of the John Wall that we saw in Washington, but really just a happy John Wall. A John Wall that's happy where he's at and making a positive contribution to a winning team. And that's exactly what the Clippers brought him in for, and I think he will do just that. As I said in the previous episode, if you listen to it, on who will be the Clippers' third option, John Wall is as strong a candidate for that as anybody. With the already, the mindset that he has. He has the mindset of a star. And I think that could hurt the Clippers potentially if he starts to bite off more than he can chew. Or it could just be the surprise that John Wall still got a lot more than we realize and will be the third best player on this Clipper team that will play like a star on some nights with his ability to get to the basket, create shots for others, and just put pressure on defenders and put pressure on the rim. If he still has any explosion at the basket, that's what to look for as a Clipper fan or as a basketball fan. So we're all rooting for John Wall. Rooting for you, man. And I was a huge John Wall fan, mind you. I may be critical about him this season potentially, but I'd say I'm pretty fair. John Wall was one of my favorite players in the NBA for many years in Washington. I actually got the privilege to see him play live for the Wizards in the 2014-15 season, which you could argue was one of the best Wizards seasons in a while. They made it to the second round. They beat who was it that they beat that first round? The Raptors. They swept the Raptors. And then they lost to the Atlanta Hawks in 6 games. That was the year that Paul Pierce was making some crazy shots in the playoffs. But John Wall missed a couple games of that second round series. But I saw them play that year in Washington at the Verizon Center. It was then called the Verizon Center. And John Wall was electric. Bradley Beal was there as well. They were playing against the Chicago Bulls, who they had previously beaten the year before in the playoffs. It was great. Great to be there. And John Wall was awesome. And I got a John Wall shirt as a souvenir. I still have it. So if you guys ever see me wearing that John Wall shirt, just know it's always Clippers all day. But I'm going to be supporting John Wall this season. And you should too. Whether you're a Clipper fan or not, the guy's been through a lot. And he's a good guy. If you guys remember, there was that, I don't remember who it was, but a child died. Forget. It was a sick, some kind of disease or illness. And remember, John Wall at a post-game interview, on the sideline interview, was tearing up. And you could see his emotions. He had met the kid. And just to see that kind of emotion was really powerful. And I that's one thing that really drew me to John Wall, was he was so emotional, wore his heart on his sleeve, and just played with passion. And I'm really excited to have another player on the Clippers that plays with passion. And if you want to find another guy with passion and interact with him, you can find him at Dime Dropper Pod. Yep, that's my Twitter, at Dime Dropper Pod, or on Instagram at Dime Dropper Pod as well, or on YouTube at Dime Dropper Podcast. For the next episode, we are going to finish off talking about the roster, the young kids, the Brandon Boston Juniors, Jason Prestons, even the centers. Will we need to go out and get a backup center? We're going to talk about potential candidates for who could be the center that the Clippers go out and get, or if Moses Brown and Moussa Diabate are just those guys already, and they're sitting right there in Playa Vista at the Honey Training Center. Everyone have a good day, but before you have a good day, make sure for your second listen to go check out the Ultimate Pro Football Preview 22, an 8-episode extravaganza to get you ready for the NFL season, the local team experts of the Locked On Podcast Network, plus a betting angle from Lee Sterling of Locked On Bets, all combining into one ultimate NFL preview. Search for Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. On behalf of me, I'm going to say go Rams, and good day to everyone.